Okay, looks like we're live. Just to check that out, actually, let's see if it's just working. Yeah, it looks like I'm live. That's always handy. And I'm joined with Matt Wooler again. This is becoming a regular Friday thing.
Sweetness.
Oh, new camera angle as well.
Yeah, using the laptop this time because it's 1 year older than my 1 year younger than my desktop, which is 2012, which was your laptop, remember?
Was it?
Yep, which I traded a bottle of bourbon for.
That sounds like the kind of trade I would do.
Worked out well for both of us.
Yeah. So this Zoom actually just got hacked before.
Really?
All those people, there was a whole bunch of people joining in here a moment ago, and it was all just like bots and people from Discord or something. They said anyway.
Yeah, right. Oh, the Garrow's here. Here he is.
Mark Garraway, good to see you, mate. Welcome to live.
What's going on?
We're all live. We're live to all the members right now. How cool is that? Looking good, Garraway.
Oh my goodness, he's got beer. What are you drinking?
I've got the James Squire Four Wives Pilsner.
Oh, nice.
Quite tropical. Goes with most whiskies I have. So
Can't go wrong with the Pilsner.
Sweet.
Or in my case, a cup of tea because I'm still in between.
Oh my God.
I've also got a dram. Don't worry. There's also a dram here on my table. I'm just saying.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm currently pairing up a Asahi a super dry, the original one that comes from Japan, not the crappy stuff that they're brewing here.
Yeah, right.
I'm just having this with Elsa Bay. Pairing her up.
I do like Elsa Bay. It's very technical, but it's a very technical whiskey. But I like that in it. There's no romance, but it doesn't always need to be. You know,
it's just some clean little playful whiskey, well priced.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's tuning in. Look at this. Good to see Steve Oates. And good to see you, Murray. Good to see you guys.
We're all here.
We're all here.
Hi, everybody.
Mate, you got to represent our Melbourne contingency, right?
Hey.
Murray, good to see you, mate. How are you?
Good. Just cracking open some stuff.
Rob Akers says, Wooler, mandatory dogs.
They're here. I can wrangle dogs.
Congratulations on the site. Best and most enjoyable outturn. Thank you, Matt. Happy outturn. There you go. Cool. Thanks a lot, Zeno. Joel Bradbury, what a day. Look, you're right. You know what? What a day. Hope everyone's relaxing, taking a nice Friday night. We're going live right now to the Society page, group, YouTube, all those places. So I'll be grabbing comments and sparking a bit of discussion here tonight if anyone wants to, doesn't mind. But yeah. How are we all going?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
what does today look like for you, Matt? When are you the one that clicks go on putting the bottles on the website, or is there a big red button?
Well, I'll let you in on a secret to do with that. Actually, the products actually go up on the website this morning. So they're pre-uploaded. So there's no sort of, obviously we're not uploading as it goes live, and they're set to schedule. So they're scheduled products on the site, and then we just hit pretty much at 11:59 and 59 seconds. Bang! They go live. Yeah, I mean we as you would have noticed, didn't crash today. Which for us is a rare occurrence, and it's a new reality. I hope we're looking forward to, because it's we've put a lot of effort into the new development of the site, and it's so a typical outturn day for me will sort of look like the morning. Most of the morning is members who've forgotten to ask questions over the last 7 days, and they've gone, oh, what should I get? And they're messaging me and they're saying, oh, I meant to get, what do you think of this? Have you tried this kind of questions? And that's great. I love answering those questions. But if you're asking me those questions at 11:55 on a Friday at the outturn, I might not have as much time for you as I'd hope.
Dude, my outturn turned up today at 12:15. 15 minutes after.
Yeah. But digital's been out for a while. It's okay. So yeah, it's and then of course it's usually just monitoring the site, checking our metrics, checking if it's crashing. It came to some pretty high. It came pretty close to our limits for our new hosting today. I'm gonna. Oh, look at this. We've got a Jason Davies joining us. I don't know who. I
think we should. I think we should talk beards and make Murray feel awkward.
Really?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, our West Australian State Manager Jason Davies has joined the channel.
Hey, Jason.
Oh no, we can't hear you yet. Here you go. Try again. Here we go.
No, there you go, beards. There it is.
Thank you very much.
Really?
Yeah.
The isolation beard. How do you like it?
Yeah, ISO beards. There you go.
We are coming to winter as well.
Going for a bit longer than isolation, though.
Yeah. Mark and Steve, I think, have us beat on everything here tonight. Jeff Darby says he's got an Ardmore in his hand. And it also says, evening. If you're not live, then you're dead, and I'm out of here. Okay. I'm going to get a bit of feedback on the channel just for a second, because it does that when I got to put the video up. And 1 second, it's going to feedbacky. And
I'm trying out a new microphone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, mate.
Crystal clear.
Brilliant.
Evening from Darren Howie. Joel says Outturn was so exciting you had to have a nap. Dave says he's crashed for a little bit, but all good. Did it crash or did it just slow up, Dave? Because I mean, we saw some slows at the checkout, but we didn't see any crashes, which is really good. I mean, crash was in. Did you get any of those? Cloudflare.
Error 507 or whatever it is.
Yeah, Error 507 screens. If you got any of those, let me know, because we didn't see any. Got what you're after, Joel. Awesome. And Wooler says, Zeno says, Wooler mine came at 3:30 today. His Outturn arrived at 3:30.
Yeah.
Seamus Carroll says, the Jason Davies. Yeah, okay. Well, you've got a title now, Jason. You're fine.
Yeah, there's only one.
The Jason Davies. That's impressive.
So yeah, we're talking about beer. Let's start with beer. I'm on a T, so everyone else go ahead, and not Murray, obviously. Go ahead.
James Squire, 4 Wives Pilsner.
What are you on, Steve? You're quite a sophisticated sipper, Steve, when it comes to your beers. What are you?
Thank you. I'm actually on a Moondog Timothy and Tamothy chocolate biscuit milk stout.
Timothy and Tamothy chocolate milk stout from Moondog.
As in Tim Tam, I guess.
They've got a new brew
without a lawsuit.
Yeah. Reminds me of Archie Rose Archie Mite, just for suddenly, that. Let's create something without a lawsuit. What was they've got a relatively new brewery, don't they?
They do. They've got I haven't followed it up too closely recently, but I think they've actually got 2 sites, or maybe they've moved out of their old one into a bigger one that's more like a fun theme Luna Park type arrangement, if I'm not wrong. Happy to be corrected on that one.
Okay. Willa, what's your beer of choice?
As I was saying earlier, Asahi.
But that's as you said, Japan brewed.
Yeah. So this is the ones when they're in the tins, 500 mil, 100, 1,000, and 2,000 mil. They're coming from Japan. And take one of these and go and get one of those bottle ones that they release here, or one of the ones that they do on tap.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You match them up, and they are leagues apart. They really are. I'm a big fan of Japanese whiskey beer.
Yep.
And I just like the cleanliness that they have. A very easy drinking sort of beer. I love hoppy beers, and I love IPAs and all that sort of stuff. But it's just general drinkers. In fact, $20, if not less, for
value, aren't they?
500 mils. That's it beats Australia. Like, Australian pricing on beer is just out of hand at the moment, in my opinion. It really does need to come down and price a bit.
Mr. Wooler, Mr. Wooler,
I'm happy to drink that.
Are the ones in the bottles? Are they brewed under license here, or are they actually imported?
Brewed under license, or you might find some are imported. I see, but they're coming in from strange places in Asia versus actually Japan.
There was some Singaporean brewed Asahi for a long time there.
Yeah,
And now,
it's like those Sapporo Silvers. Those things are coming in from is it Thailand and also Canada, something like that. And they're fine, but it's more the case of if I can get Japanese beer at a good price. Otherwise, usually once a year, I might go and buy myself a carton of Orion Okinawan beer. That stuff's lovely as well. Great, easy drinker.
Yeah.
And is that readily available at a bottle shop near you, Mr. Wooler?
No, not at all. But the distributor will, you can buy directly from the distributor. You can go pick it up from them, or they'll deliver it to you. Sorry?
That's convenient. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of them, but I can get you those details.
Yeah. Yeah, spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Just a big shout out to everyone who's been joining in: Tristan Farmer, David Vitale, Nick Baxter, Kathleen Davies, Johnny Edwards, and everyone else who's been tuning in. There's distillers. I've got a room full of distillers in the audience. That's not nervous enough, isn't it? There you go. Don't say anything wrong about distilling. These guys know what they're doing. I was actually thinking. Sorry, Jason, are you on a beer or what? What are you dramming or?
Beer and whiskey, of course.
Of course.
I'm on the Steady Head from Blaster at the moment, which is just a mid-strength, but keep local alive, all that kind of thing.
That's right. I love my mid-strengths. I love a full-flavored mid-strength beer. I have said that a number of times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Blaster's near you, isn't it? Like you're near Blaster.
I used to be around the corner from them. I moved a few months back. Now my closest is Other Side Brewery. But yeah, I'll buy from both of them. Keep them going.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And for those who are non-beer drinkers, aka Murray.
Yeah.
What do you drink?
No beer. Get out.
No beer.
No beer, no beard. Yes, I am that boring guy. I'm drinking the Andalusian gazpacho that Matt and that I cracked open a couple of weeks ago when Matt and I were doing a book review. So I haven't come back to that since, although I did make a bit of a dent on it that night. I'm just realizing. So that could account for some of the colourful review. But but no, I'm just back on that because, well, it was a Spirit of Speyside Festival bottling, and today being festival bottling. So, yeah, I thought, why not?
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
I had a fond memory pop up on Facebook today regarding the Speyside Festival back in 2015. I was camping in Aberlour and it snowed on the 1st of May.
Oh, that sounds wrong.
Yeah, so it was a bit fresh.
Yeah.
But I was able to take some great photos up at the Speyside Cooperage, which was covered in snow. So that was there were some benefits.
Wow, the Speyside Cooperage and snow, that's not something I would have ever thought. I mean, it makes sense, but yeah.
The idea of coopering casks.
Quite picturesque.
Lovely.
Yeah, the idea of coopering casks in that temperature is not something that I find very appealing.
It's hard work. It's hard work at the best of times.
Yeah. There's when I was at Speyside Cooperage, there's a guy there who had the Guinness World Record for the fastest cask coopered.
Yep.
You could cooper a full cask from parts into a watertight cask in like whatever it was 2 minutes and 13 seconds or something. It's like I couldn't even do that in 2.5 days, let alone 2.5 seconds.
Just call for help. Can you air tasker that?
Yeah. Is there someone on air tasker that can help me build a cask? Surely I'd find someone.
How many cooperages are there still in Scotland?
Oh, that's a good question. Are you including the ones that are adjunct to distilleries?
Yeah, whatever the count is in total. Yeah.
I know of 3 big ones, but I know there's a whole bunch of smaller ones. Like if you count the cooperage at Tullabardine, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, there's a cooperage attached to some distilleries, which is not, and there's a cooperage at Loch Lomond distillery as well. It's like, if are they cooperages? I mean, because the Loch Lomond one is a good example because they don't actually make casks there. They just repair and refurb existing ones.
Mm.
And it's whereas it's a little bit different with Tullibardine. They do a little bit more cask work at their distillery. I don't know. I think you've got to divide between massive cooperage and distillery cooperage, which are obviously, one's a tiny
maintenance focused.
Yeah. Well, the Loch Lomond one is no bigger than maybe actually it's about twice the size of my office. It's tiny. It's just a sort of a stretch of a room that is designed for maintenance and recharring and retoasting, not for building. The building aspect needs a huge component, as you would have seen at Speyside. It's just that cask is leaking, and so let's fix that cask kind of thing.
Does Belveni still have a cooperage?
I think they do.
Or on-site coopers, I should
say.
They
do. It's about the same size as Tullibardine's. It's sort of a. If I recall correctly, it's cask rejuvenation and repair.
Yeah, repair shop.
Yeah.
I think Isla's got one as well, attached to I can't remember which distillery now. It's one of them that they've shared for years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be attached to Ardbeg or one of the Kildalton 3. So I know that one of them has some sort of repair facility that I think, because they're all island, iliacs, they'll share that resource among themselves.
There's one attached out the back of Lefroy. But
that's it, Lefroy, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That one's again. It's sort of repair and
it's a repair shop. It's not a
task. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Seamus.
Hey, mate. How you doing?
Yes.
Good to see you, mate.
Well, I said the Jason Davies. I feel like I had to make my opinions of him, verbalized.
Get him off. Kick him off, Matt.
Booted. Yeah, right. That's it. You're done.
They're all good. He's the best man in Perth.
Good to see you, mate. It must have been at least a year.
Look, it's not been a year, and I can tell because I'm still slightly hungover. Before anything serious, I would like to tell you a brief story about something Jason did to me. We had a bit of a bender one night, and he's going to turn his camera off now. A bit of a bender one night, and we both woke up, and he had sent me a picture at about 7 or 8 a.m. of a car crash on the side of a street, and it just with the words, "Don't you remember what happened last night?" And I didn't get to speak to him till like 3 or 4 in the afternoon that day, where he finally admitted, "Yeah, I just Googled car crash and sent you a picture or something." He clearly thought that was hilarious.
I think that's hilarious.
It very well actually might be hilarious, but it gave me a lot of anxiety during that particular whiskey event.
I actually drove past it on the way to the show.
That's right.
And the idea just popped into my head, so I had to pull over, take a photo, and.
Look, as long as you were thinking of me.
Always, mate. Yeah. Lasting impression.
For those playing at home, Seamus is one of the legends over at Brown Forman and looks after single malts. Am I getting all that right?
Pretty much premium whiskies.
Premium whiskies. There you go. So
also those wonderful Woodford reserves up there.
There you go. Woodford as well. Sorry, I always just assume single malt. Sorry.
Oh, bloody single malt whiskey society.
Just the good stuff, mate. Don't worry about it.
Woodford's made a single malt. Never forget.
Yeah. That is true.
Although self-admitted by Chris Morris as to being terrible, still we still made it.
It's worth experimentation at the very least.
And to answer your beer question before it comes, Green Beacon, one of their wonderful experiments.
Where are they based? Where's Green Beacon? I've heard that.
They're from a wonderful town in Queensland known as Brisbane, Vegas to the locals. They did a wonderful strawberry IPA. Very weird, but very tasty.
I saw the
Looks like a
colour on
Bloody
that
Mary.
before. I wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah, strawberry hibiscus is the vibe. But if you
You
can't
need some
tell by
celery
the
in
cow
that.
print, that is full of lactose.
You like-
Comment from Simon Edmonds. Was this the guy? I don't know which guy we're talking about, but is that Seamus that we're talking about here, or I don't know. Sorry, I don't know what that question is, Simon. But you've
No,
been
the
followed
guy.
The guy. Oh, this the guy? Oh, you're the guy. Okay.
No,
Well,
it's obviously the Jason Davies.
right. That's right.
Seamus is the guy.
Iona says my partner weighed the outturns today. Don't ask me why. April was 46 grams and May was 90 grams. Okay, so it's double the weight. Question from Jeff Darby, and this is probably a good one that Seamus is in here. Glendronach has its own cooperage. Not sure for repairs or new or what? Question mark.
Repairs, generally repairs. We lean on Speyside cooperage heavily when creating new casks, but obviously most of Glendronach's casks are coming straight off a shipping container straight from Spain.
Yeah. Is it all Spanish oak?
Yes, yeah, we're very, very, very proud of the fact that it's always Spanish oak, especially in the current era, and that it's on a shipping container and in our warehouse in a very short period of time.
Sure.
What did we all pick up from Outturn today? Did anyone make any purchases?
Oh, I made a few.
The whatever it was, the
Yeah, you can't even remember. It was like 4 hours
I
ago.
think on the
guys.
first one.
malt of the month, one of the malt of the month.
You got the 53 burial at sea. Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
What was the bottle that the bottling that went out in 32 seconds? 30 bottles to zero in 32
Longmorn.
seconds.
The Longmorn, and equally so. Actually, the most popular festival release was not what we expected. It was the 10.188 New Acquaintance.
Really?
The 14-year-old cherried Islay one. That was the most popular.
I tried a sample of that last night from whiskey.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Super good. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and how did it compare? How did you find it compare? Because you got one of those whiskey and helmet triples, didn't you? The pack.
Yes. I actually it wasn't on my radar until I got the pack yesterday. But the young 10, the 6-year-old heavily peated, I think that I preferred that slightly over the older sherry matured one. And I ended up grabbing a bottle of the heavily peated 10. That was amazing.
Right. Okay.
For a heavily peated whiskey, it wasn't too crazy. And you got a lot of sweetness from the sherry cask, and it was pretty awesome, to be honest. So picked that one up.
It was a second fill, and it was a. I had a discussion with Andrew about this, and we didn't know whether you're supposed to say Moyne or Moynier, because I've heard both, and it's one of those things. Say it wrong, then you're going to get all the nerds just blasting down on you about it.
Isn't the rule speak confidently and you'll never be questioned?
I thought that only works in front of a crowd. It's Andrew spooked it last night, says Darren. That's true. So Andrew did talk about both 10s last night in his live. He was covering for me, which was great. And he was focusing on the 2 10s, which weren't part of the pack. And so it's good to focus on 2 others. The only whiskey we haven't really delved into much is this one. Just happens to be on my desk. 29.268, that 22-year-old 29.
That's right. We're allowed to travel for a little bit tomorrow, and 2 people. So
yeah,
I'm coming
jump in and I'll crack this one open.
I bagged it.
2 people. All right, Matt, I'm coming with you.
It.
Matt, I'm coming with you. That's 2.
Leave my office and I'll
Mazza, go away, mate.
I'll just leave you guys in my office, right? Is that yeah, sure.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
What happens if we technically choose to live there?
I can't think of anything worse. I'd never get rid of you. Let's be honest.
Let's be honest. Just your background and all your live streams would be ruined. There'd be no bottles. It'd just be empty shelves.
Shelves here and there to be. It was fun whilst it lasted. I'll find you in a mess out in the backyard each night, right? Yeah.
Generous to think I could walk that far, but thank you.
No, Matt, you'll have to hose them out of your room to the backyard.
You wouldn't want to damage the paper labels with the water, mate.
The labels. That's it. That's it. Where's the boot button for Seamus? I can't find it. Where is it? Jeff says, ever try to learn Gaelic? Yeah, you'll be forgiven for not pronouncing it right. Very different. Yeah. Well, I don't. Can anyone here speak Gaelic? I don't think so. So, I mean, that's the thing. I'm always going to get that one wrong, I know. And Rob says, does the 29 really need more hype? No, I don't think it does. There's a list a mile long for the ballot. So I think this one will stay sealed and some lucky member will get it unless I open it.
What has more entries for the ballot, Matt? The 29 or the 33?
The 33. By a fair margin. I mean, not by a long shot, no. I mean, just a fairish margin. I'd have to have a look, but it's 33. It's gonna get, and plus $5.99 is a fair outlay for many on a bottle of whiskey. I mean, it is for me, and it's probably most of you. It's just if you're gonna spend $600 on one bottle. I mean, for me personally, I'd go maybe 2 or 3 bottles for that kind of money normally, but
I think we
something
had
like
a discussion last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was actually a really good question. It was like, would you spend, if you had 600? Actually, the amount was 600, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Would you buy 3 bottles? Would you buy 2? Would you buy 1? Or
12 bottles of Collingwood.
12 bottles of Collingwood.
Thanks, Matt.
What a plug.
For anyone who doesn't know, he's referring to our wonderful Canadian whiskey.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
I call it wonderful, mate.
It's subjective.
Ooh.
Hey, yeah, there's many things that they do well. So there's a question here. Here we go. So the question was, what are some pairings that have never worked? It's a good question.
Oh.
So pairings, like, how we have like sort of whiskey and beer pairings, whiskey and food pairings, all those kind of things in the past, and you can even do them at home now, of course. What are something that for you guys that has never worked? Like a pairing that you thought would work, maybe? Because I've got one, but I don't want to influence it. So
Maduri and milk never seems to work for me.
Maduri and milk, yeah, okay.
How many times have you tried it? You keep trying.
Well, actually, it only had to be once. Let's be honest.
Could you try almond or coconut milk instead? Maybe. I mean, there's opportunities here.
Hello, yeah, options. I like it.
Yeah. Maybe try like a sweetened almond milk. Yeah.
Smoky whiskies and chocolate cake.
Look, smoky whiskey and chocolate overall don't work.
You don't think whiskey chocolate ever works? Wow.
He doesn't think smoky whiskies and chocolate. I disagree with that. But smoky whiskies, I've yet to find working with a chocolate cake.
How much cake are you eating?
More than I should.
I do want to be clear while we're on smoky whiskies. If anyone says smoky cokies, I'm going to work out a way to kick you out of this chat.
Smoky cokies. There you go. What about you, Mark?
I remember I tried some goat's cheese shortly followed by some whiskey in the past, and that was not a very good pairing. But other than that, I think anything spicy surrounded by whiskey just completely ruins everything. So having a curry for dinner, and you've really got to have a lot of water or a couple of beers before you go into the whiskeys. So.
Curry and whiskey, then that's a bad combo. Yeah, but I mean it's not exactly one that you often find pairings in.
Yeah.
Like, have you been to many curry and whiskey nights? I know I haven't. I've been to a few steak and whiskey nights, but not curry and whiskey nights.
There is actually an Indian restaurant up in Brisbane that does do pairings of Indian dishes with whiskeys.
Do they use Indian whiskey, or do they just sort of pick everything?
They actually work really closely with the malt traders guys, so they feature a lot of Australian and American whiskeys.
All right, yeah. That's Joe Bowles.
That's our man.
Didn't the UK do a curry and whiskey event once a while back, man?
I'm more than certain they have, yeah. And they do regular like steak and whiskey nights.
Yeah, they've done steak and whiskey ones. Yeah,
that was fantastic. I got to go one of the steak and whiskey ones at the Vaults. It's like a full steak dinner with an entree and a dessert. And I think it was like 4 or 5 whiskeys in the lineup. It was like 35 quid. That's ridiculous. Anyway,
We should do that. We should do that.
Oh yeah. God, the list of planned things that we're working on, of course. Once
Stay away from peppercorns with the steak if you're having whiskeys. That would have to be one of my top things to avoid is peppercorns and whiskey.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
It is
Okay.
Interesting.
I won't talk about the disasters I've encountered from brands, but certainly even trying it at home. But then it's sort of like when it comes to things like bourbon, this is why I cook with bourbon so much, as bourbon is so robust that it really deals with things like barbecue so well.
Yeah.
It uses so well. It works with protein so well. You know, you can blend bourbon into almost anything. I've blended it into ice cream, and it freaking works.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Bourbon and chocolate cake. And yes, I'm going to go on the theme of chocolate cake. That rocks.
It's robust, you know, but it goes back to a little bit to do with what Matt was saying last week in his thoughts that he doesn't love, well, not love or anything like that, but you're less favorable to the virgin cask Scotch whiskies, yet I find they're much more pairable.
I'm just skeptical. It should be approached with the same level of skepticism as a sherry cask or it should be.
Yeah.
It should be tempered. It should be balanced. Yeah.
But I just think it's one of those big things that with bourbons is they really do apply to so many more things. But then there's other things that it just can't work with. You know, anything that's too delicate. But yeah, it's, you know, splash it across anything that you're cooking in the fry pan, and it's going to taste great.
True.
The trick I was showing Matt the other week, and he's been using it with the smoker I gave him the other week, is soaking your wood chips in bourbon before you get them on the smoker to actually start smoking through.
So I've now smoked wood chips. I've now smoked those wood chips as I did it that first night in Wild Turkey, but I've also done it now with Booker's, and I've done it with some Old Forester. So I've used 3 different bourbons to create to soak it, just to try different ones each time.
But Seamus, that was in that's there's a recipe for smoking for infusing the Jack Daniels into wood chips in one of the cookbooks. I think the Jack Daniels cookbook that they used to sell at Lynchburg. So
absolutely, and I wouldn't be ashamed of that at all. I mean, Jack Daniels has such a sweet flavor from that yeast that it goes so well with any kind of wood.
Yeah, I know that was in the book. It's now out of print, that Jack Daniels cookbook, but it was quite good. I remember.
God, I love your knowledge of books.
Are they all whiskey books behind you, Murray?
Computer equipment behind me. The whiskey book pile is just
It's there.
It's there. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, he's bringing out an Octomore, Matt the Wooler.
I can smell it from here.
Another one. Actually, this was a fresh bottle I opened before. There is no smoke in this. It tastes all like pineapple. It's just pineapple.
Is that the tin or the drum or what? What's that?
It's an Arbeck 10, but you would classify the drum, the type of flavor that's coming off it. I have no idea. It's an old bottle that I've had, but
What's the old code on that? What's the code on that? The lot code on that?
where am I going to find that?
On the bottom of the bottle. On the
Back bottom. Come on.
In the dark, you want me to look at a dark bottle?
Watch. Just do this. Look. Go like that. Just look at the.
Pretend you're 20 years younger. Use your eyes.
Wow. You know what? One day, Seamus, if you're lucky, you'll be old. You know, if you're lucky.
I'll be back.
All right. Gerald says a Japanese bar owner and one of the top 50 bars in the world, Ben Fiddick, Hero, made us try Nikka Yoichi and Miyagiko with chocolate and coffee, and it was amazing. I can imagine. That sounds pretty good. I do like actually coffee and whiskey pairings. They can work really well. And Andy Davis, who's stuck at work, says, I made 2 batches of ice cream for a tasting a few years ago. Hard to make ice cream set when it uses real whiskey instead of imitation flavors, but it got cold enough and it works. The Glenfarclas 105 was not strong enough, but the 15 was really flavoursome. There you go. And Hero is a legend. Yeah, I can agree. Are you using a Kamado or an offset smoker? Darren, I've got no idea. It just smokes meats and stuff.
Yours?
Was it Kamado or offset? What's the answer to that?
Yours?
Yeah.
Mine? It's just a box smoker, gas-fired box smoker.
Box smoker. There you go. Whatever that is. So
it's about a meter tall by 60 wide by 60 wide.
Yeah. There you go, Darren. Sorry, I don't know any more detail on that. It does produces good results. I think my answer is cigars. I just don't think cigars and whiskey ever go together. I've said this before. I love cigars. I love whiskey. And I love them separately. And if I'm having a nice cigar, I'm not going to focus too much on what's going on in the glass. I think I'm just going to pour something a bit cheaper and a bit of fun. But do you guys ever have much experience with like cigars and whiskey as a pairing, together?
I agree with that completely. Like for me, my palate's blowing as soon as I spark up a cigar. So if you're trying to actually taste a whiskey, then you're not going to get a lot out of it. Yeah. That's my experience anyway.
And for the most part, I find that it's like I'd prefer even like a car strength rum with a cigar. Like I get this, like I love that rummy note that I get, that sort of rich sweet note. But I just don't like. I find that a lot of the complexities of even like a cheap car strength rum, like something that's not. I don't need some sort of rare Hampton or something. Yeah, sure. Just something that's a bit of fun and flavoursome. Even a Diplomatico would do the trick. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to be, crazy stuff. Yeah.
Density and sweetness.
What's that?
Density and sweetness for cigars.
Density and sweetness, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always either been, I have two go-tos. It's either like a nuclear level bourbon, like a Booker's or a cask strength Willet or something crazy, or English Harbour 10.
English Harbour 10, yeah.
I will always settle back to English Harbour for a cigar.
Yeah. And Puss's Navy, right? Like just goes great.
Absolutely. I mean, any rum that has that good flinty quality to it.
Yeah.
Do they do many society and cigar things over in the UK?
No, not at all.
Cigar juice.
Cigar juice.
Yeah, some 139s.
Yeah. I just wonder about that because I always find it one either overpowers the other, and it's almost always the cigar overpowers the spirit. Comment from Ryan Swampy, who says the only thing that works with chocolate is PX cherry.
That's what I put in my bolognese tonight.
That bolognese looks like it's coming along, mate.
Oh, it's done. Ate it.
I got food envy over here, mate.
Man, come over and eat.
Yeah,
it's legal now. Don't invite me like that. You don't know what will happen.
He'll just stumble on you. He'll open the front door with his chin if you're not careful.
Alrighty. I thought I'd open something fun up that I haven't touched for a while. The cork broke, which sucks. But I don't know if anyone can see that.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What's the proof?
What's the proof on that?
66.2.
That's a belter.
That is an refill sherry butt.
Okay. Yeah. A little sneak preview. We've actually got R1.5 on its way.
I'm going to do a side by side with this one.
Yeah, so it's been a while between R1s. You don't see too many single cask Money Musk, which is a bit of fun there. Not that I know it's Money Musk. Zeno says the best SMWS and cigar pairing that I have found to work is the Trifle Delightful from the November-December 19 Outturn. Trifle Delight.
You
mean the cognac?
Cognac.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a whiskey. There you go. So it wasn't like, I find a lot of rums work. I find a lot of cognacs and other brandies work. I mean, you know what, Zeno? Try it with a rum. Tell me how you go with that.
I would
I
actually.
think I noticed a typo in the Outturn just talking about Trifle Delightful.
Oh, here we go. It's a full-page Outturn. There's going to be a mistake. What did we get wrong this time?
I'm pretty sure it says 120 in here. I'm pretty sure it's still up for 145 online.
Oh, that's
Maybe.
too bad.
Too bad.
Yeah, I have to pay 145. Sorry.
Cognac drinkers just have to put up with that.
I don't know. I'll have to check that. Thanks for. You know what? I'm going to circle that. No, I haven't got any pens. Scotty will be disappointed. Doesn't matter. Leave it.
Scotty doesn't care.
He surprisingly does care too much about pens.
He's a pen collector.
Or is he?
He's a pen 15, that's for sure.
That's what he is.
That just passes the radar on a society theme, Seamus. Well done. You found the limit and you've got it.
Now I know.
Oh, awesome background, Wooler. Well done.
Yeah,
What the hell?
Thanks a lot.
I got proof, man. You're drinking whiskey and smoking cigars.
You know what? I know exactly where that photo was taken, and I think the timing was appropriate. But at the same time, I'm almost as young as Seamus in that photo. Look at me.
Oh man, no, hold on. It's not in black and white. That can't be true.
Well done. Hashtag Team Refill, says Rob Akers in response to your R1.4 there, Murray.
Yes, Team Refill.
Hashtag Team Refill. Yes. What are you jamming on, Seamus? What's going on there?
I'm being non-society, although that's my next jam. I'm having a Glenglassaugh hand fill.
Very cool. I remember you opening that the other week. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite about the fact that this is my favorite distillery of ours.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of an underappreciated gem. This is a 7-year-old Marsala cask, full maturation, and it's got the front, middle, and back that I've never had in a wine cask before.
Mm.
And it doesn't make any sense to me and why it's this good, but it is just outrageously good.
It's rare that a Marsala cask does well because they tend to be so sweet they can dominate. If it's full cask maturation, it's too much. But if it's just a finish, it can add a funny sweet note that doesn't sometimes sit well. But
I totally agree with you. Sometimes that sweet note can twist a bit to the savory, but I think it's because the GG spirit is this kind of viscous bomb that it's giving it a really strong mid palate, and it's keeping that bitterness at the front and that big thick sweetness at the back. It's balancing it quite well.
Nice.
And honestly, the only reason I'm thinking of it like that is because I just got a bourbon cask sample of the GG there, and it's completely showing me those characteristics.
Wow, cool.
GG. Jason, what are you jamming?
I can grab you the bottle, actually. One from a few months ago. 108.
108. Yeah.
Hello.
So we've had a few. It's one of those distilleries where we've had a few unpeated and a few heavily peated casks come through, which is exciting.
Yeah, it's one of those green fingers, nougat and ginger. So, not a hugely creative name as your normal SMWS bottles, but
No.
it's a tasting note in a name. So, and it works. It's absolutely bang on. That's all I get from it.
Yeah, no, very cool, very cool. That was, like I said, it's a pretty diverse distillery. It's a young distillery as well in the grand scheme of things, if I recall correctly. But it's one of those distilleries that everyone's going to get the name wrong. Of course, it's Orthovan. If anyone wants to get that one wrong twice, I will.
And only just started releasing their own kind of range as well.
Yeah, which is a lightly peated core range bottling. Yeah, in that sort of rectangular kind of bottle for about $70 or something.
Actually, while we're on that, does anyone know if that is peated and unpeated distillate being blended, or it being matured in a peated cask, or it being a lightly peated run?
I don't know. There's a few things I do know about them as a distillery in terms of the high elevation. They're a young distillery, and they're one of the few distilleries that basically can run on 0.5 staff at all times. So it's a very modern facility, but I don't know I don't know much about their maturation policy, and I don't think they reveal too much about that outside of common literature.
Yeah, it's probably right. That sounds like it'll be internal distillery ops, and the only way to get that is talking to the staff, whoever's there, because it does run largely autopilot, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's even more autopilot than Abelauer is these days, and So I think it's just it's one staff member every 8-hour shift or something, and they just hit the green button and walk away.
Yes, we do have a saying from Stuart Buchanan that's quite cheeky about that. We say, Siri, make me whiskey. I'm sorry, Stuart, for saying that.
It's okay. He's a cheeky bugger enough that he can probably get away with that one.
I think so.
Caleb says, "Hey, it's Virgin Oak Seamus." There he is. That's right. Yeah.
just get rid of the oak there, mate.
Wow, where's that border again? You just found it again, didn't you? There.
He likes to go right up to it.
Yeah, right up to it. You're banging on the door of that one.
He's stretching it. He's pushing the.
Yeah, stretching that one a bit. Yeah,
pushing.
I don't mind. And Dave Vitalia made a comment of that photo of me and said, "When was that? 1998." Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate it. Always appreciate it. You know what? I'm going to find a young photo of you and you'll regret it. Don't worry. No, I'm just kidding. Bob Wenting joined. Good to see you, Bob. Must be 9 a.m. where you are right now. Hope you're well. He's one of our European ambassadors. Cool. Franz Schuro joined. Good to see you, Franz. Hope you're well.
Hey, Franz.
Excellent. If I could just live a day in the life of Franz's cuisine and Iranian coffees and things, it'd be like ridiculous. So there was a question here. Oh yeah, what are some of your milestone drams that you always want to try but ended up being disappointing?
The first one, I've got one. The first one, Johnny Walker Blue Label.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I remember growing up thinking that was like the pinnacle of whiskey. I think a lot of people did. You know, sort of like in your whiskey journey, when you're especially a real novice to it all, and you see Blue Label as the you know, it's like it's the Grange Hermitage of you know, all that kind of stuff. It's the best. It's the
well, when we were paying $450, $500 a bottle.
Yeah, it was
like 2010, 2011, still that pricing, and it was like
$350, but yeah, it was up there.
Oh no.
My bottle that I bought in 2006 was $380.
Yeah, right.
Totally spanked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was in on Johnny Walker Blue Label. I used to work at a bottle shop, and you just can't talk people out of buying it.
Yeah.
Like its place in the market is for people buying it for someone's 50th birthday or someone's birthday.
Oh, it's the ultimate gifting whiskey.
Yeah, and I'm like, there's some really good whiskeys over here that are a quarter of the price. Oh no, I just want to get them a Blue Label. I'm like, oh, okay, no worries.
It's a funny whiskey too, because if you break it down fundamentally as a blend, it's actually a fantastic whiskey. Like it's very well constructed. It's got a great back, middle, top. But if you're not too on top of how whiskeys taste, you probably won't appreciate all that depth that has to it.
Yeah.
And B, it's not sold on the merit of how it tastes. It's sold on the fact that it says blue on the label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
and the
an
packaging
whiskey.
and all of that. Yeah.
It was I actually liken it a bit to it's a bit like Andrew Derbidge, our Cellarmaster, wrote an article on Whiskey and Wisdom maybe a couple of years ago now, which was he wrote about Glenfiddich Distillery, and he referenced it to that. He said it's the distillery that you start with often in your whiskey journey, and then you leave for quite a long time in some cases, but then when you come back to it, you really, really appreciate it again. And same for me. It's like when I first tasted if I tasted like a Glenfiddich 18, I remember, and it was like, this is, or actually maybe the 15 Solera as they called it at the time or something. And it was like the most unbelievable whiskey for me. But I thought, oh, it's great. But then your journey, you take all these twists and turns and you discover interesting other distilleries and discover independent bottlings in other regions and blah, blah, blah. And then you come back to something like a whiskey like that, as Willa will know about your last tasting, where you had a Glenfiddich 14 Rich Oak.
Yeah, Rich Oak left you.
That was the highlight of that tasting for me. That was just like that was the absolute benchmark of a whiskey. It was so rich. It was so lovely. It was like
that was using those virgin oak elements to finish it. And
wipe that smirk off your face, Seamus. Yeah, but it's true though. Like you get this. It was a lovely whiskey that had that lovely old school floral Speyside note that you love in a whiskey, but you write it off as a brand for so long because you're like, oh, it's I know I only drink Brora and Springbank, blah blah blah, whatever. Like you come back to great whiskies again. You're like, oh wow, okay, I had no idea.
That was a 14-year-old whiskey. It sat in the market here for a few years, and then it was gone. And it was sort of like the substitute for when the 15 was off the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Didn't they move that around in the market? Like I read somewhere, it was on one of the websites, like maybe even Scotch Whisky or something, .com, but they moved the 15 and the Rich Oak around the different markets around the world.
I think that was one of their releases that bounced between travel retail
Yeah.
and normal retail.
I have a feeling they did that, and they did that with some of the 19s, like the 19-year-olds that were done in red wine casks and a bunch of other finishes.
Age of Discovery, yeah.
They bounced that around between travel retail and regular channels.
The red wine cask in the Age of Discoveries, that was
something else.
Yeah, that was magical in comparison to the other two that were in that range. By far.
I never bought any of those Age of Discovery ones. I remember seeing them at the airports and stuff, like for $260 or $80 or $280 something, and for a 40% whiskey at the time. I was kind of like, no, I'll leave that kind of thing. I'm always funny about packaging though. I see these ornate boxes with like, and I go, how much am I spending on that satin liner box kind of feel? And I get a bit funny about some of that stuff, especially with duty-free releases, which is a whole nother discussion. But going back to that question, sorry, Steve, I want to hear yours. What was the whiskey that was sort of a milestone that you always wanted to try, and when you did try it, it was actually quite disappointing? It was sort of not disappointing, but just like it didn't live up to the expectation.
Yeah, I'm actually struggling to think of one at the moment. Maybe if I hear a few more suggestions, I'll be able to pipe up with something that didn't quite work for me.
I'm happy to throw in Gentleman Jack there as a serious disappointment. And I love the old number. Like I love the original, and I think it's fantastic.
Are you talking Gentleman Jack in the flat bottle or the round bottle?
Like, why are you doing this?
Flat bottle or round bottle?
What?
The flat bottle or the round bottle, Gentleman?
That's flat. That's got to be flat.
Yeah, flat. Okay,
yeah.
Round bottle hardly came into this country.
Yeah, but I find it like, why strip out the flavors even more? It's like, hang on a second, you're already at and that's why I think Old Number 7 actually is such a great high level entry, well, what you want to classify there, entry level for a lot of people, but the quality level is just fantastic. It really
gets sledged a lot. And I'm with you on that, Matt. I think Old Number 7 is actually a very consistently good whiskey. It has so much potential to do things. And going back to that mixing question and matching, you can do things with it. You can throw it in a dish, or
not every whiskey is designed to be nose and taste out of a copper. Some of them are meant to, as versatile as an Old Number 7 that can be, matched.
Well, I think that's what we've come back to a couple times now, is the whiskies that are the best sellers in the industry, even though it's not the coolest thing to appreciate, there is a reason they are the best seller in the industry. They make a solid product for the price, and it'd be insane to tell anyone that they're a bad whiskey. But there is definitely a stage in the intermediate point where it may not be the whiskey for you anymore, but often people progress back to going, oh, that's actually a fantastic whiskey.
You go back to it and you revisit more.
There's always someone on a Facebook group willing to tell you how bad it is. Don't worry, there's enough of that. So Jason, what was your call?
I was trying to rack my brain, just trying to think of one when the question was posed. But it wasn't, all I could think of wasn't a particular whiskey or SKU that I was kind of aiming for. But I remember when I was quite early on in my whiskey journey, let's call it, someone gave me a Port Ellen blind. He'd ordered one and gave me a taste of one and tried to make me guess what it was. And I guessed some other Islay distillery, thinking not much of it. And he said, oh, that's a Port Ellen. And I was just like, oh, it's all right. So that was one of those, Port Ellen was put on such a high pedestal just because it was it
still is
distillery. Yeah, it still is. Yeah. So yeah, not a specific whiskey for me, but just more a distillery, I suppose, for me. But yeah, whiskey in general.
Yeah.
But there's still some great ones. But yeah.
First whiskey I ever bought, like went out and bought my own bottle, was Glenfiddich 12.
Same.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
It's a gateway whiskey. And,
And
like
the-
people come back to it, yeah.
the solid drinker I still have, like on a daily dram, if you want to classify that. I don't drink a lot anymore because you're around whiskey so much. I actually don't want to drink a lot of it. And that's like the Glenlivet 12. I love the old Glenlivet 12, and I've still got a carton and a half. So they went down to like $45 a bottle when they were being taken off the market here for some reason.
It's
and so
Founders Reserve.
I bought like 3 cartons of the stuff. And I've still got a carton and a half, which I'll just pull out a bottle every now and then and just pull it and go, this is great. I love this stuff. I've always just loved drinking it. And I haven't bothered to actually buy any of the new stuff because clearly I've still got the older carton. So I have no idea whether it even tastes the same anymore. No idea, but
It's certainly not 45 a bottle anymore, that's for sure.
yeah, that's for sure.
Just a comment from Jeff Darby. He says, I've never been let down by whiskey. Some are better than others, but all have their own merit in a way. You know what? What's that? It's actually, that's that old pizza line. There's no such thing as bad pizza. It's just some pizza is better than others. It's like, there's something like that. I don't know.
Matt, what are you dramming on there? I noticed you had a dram of something.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a tasty little barrel sample for something that we recently sent to panel. So it's something that is of local.
I was going to say it's got to be Australian if you got it.
Yeah. They're not going to send me UK cask samples just for me to assess to send back to sample. No.
Why not?
Well, they do. They send Andrew and I all the samples for all the special releases, but not the not for regular stuff. So for anniversary casks and stuff, Andrew will often look after the old school panel approach of bringing those samples in and stuff. But no, I'm not going to do a Derbidge and drink like a 33.1 tonight or whatever he was. Oh, look who's joining us here. Here we go. You can take the boy out of wick, but you can't take the wick out of the boy.
Hey. It's our man.
Mr. Cowie, how's your audio? Here you go.
You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute. Let me unmute you. Here you go. There you go, mate. Are you there?
Okay. Yeah, I am indeed. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Happy Friday night to you.
You too.
I introduced you by saying you can take the boy out of wick, but you can't take the wick out of the boy.
You can take a lot. Can't take much out of wick. Actually, there's further all there.
So I guess you didn't get the 52. Is that what you're saying?
You can get a few shopping trolleys out of the river, but that's about it.
So for those who don't know, this is Anthony Cowie, who is was one of the society panelists for quite some time, along with Murray here as well, I should say. So these guys have both got monster palates and worth asking some questions or particularly coming in. Happy Friday night to you all. Here we go.
What are you drinking, Anthony?
What's that?
What are you drinking?
I just thought I'd kill this one off.
Wait.
Oh,
As you do.
what a flex, buddy.
Yeah,
There's not much left. But what it is, I'll enjoy it.
Before we lose the thread, can I ask you a bit of a nerdier question, Matt? When you're assessing a Australian whiskey for the society, are you assessing it based on not only its quality of a whiskey, obviously, but its kind of its relationship with the society, how well it would fit in with a malt whiskey drinker traditionally, how well it would fit in with someone who's used to drinking scotch?
No, not at all. Only because it seems largely irrelevant with the number of countries and number of regions and types of spirit that we're now dealing with. I mean, even in this outturn, there's a gin. I mean, we don't assess that gin thinking it's a barrel-aged gin, so it's a sort of a old Tom style gin, but it's we don't assess the gin based on the there it is. Makes the meta gin go down. Very, very funny. It's a second fill bourbon barrel gin. And we're not going to assess the gin based on what a malt whiskey drinker would appreciate. We're just assessing it on the quality and the merits of that spirit. And just like with the Australian ones, we're just sending them. We send them to panel. They don't know what distillery it is. They don't know what the cask types are. They don't know what the age statements are. They don't have any of that detail because they're nosing and tasting out of opaque glassware, so they can assess it properly and not be influenced by anything.
Are they using blue glassware there?
They are for SWRI, which Dr. Andy Forrester on our team now is working closely with. So I think I've moved everything over to blue.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Sorry, SWRI?
The Scotch Whisky Research Institute.
Wow.
Been going on for, how long? They've been around for about 30, 35 years now.
30 years as SWRI, and before that, Pentlands.
Ah, yes, of course. Okay, sure. But they, Pentlands, right. Okay. But that's like the level of research and scientific development that goes into that place is absurd.
That's the nerd place.
Oh, so then they use a combination of scientific, computerized, and human analysis of spirit, and that's the place where they can send a bottle to test if it's being fake. If it's a fake, you can test. They can tell straight away, like even the best fakes in the world, and there are plenty out there, as we've seen. There's a few certain distilleries and expressions and whatnot that I would never even dream of buying secondary as a result of that. One starting with Mac and one starting with Port.
Pedronic doesn't start with Mac.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's probably fakes of all of them. So, as soon as the value of things go up, it's we had a member actually buy a Society Bemore in Melbourne. He's a Melbourne member, and he bought a Society Bemore, and he bought it from auction, and it had on the top seal here. It was all sort of lumpy, and like it had all these air bubbles in the top seal. And he sent me a photograph, and he said, "Is that normal?" And I said, "No, I've never ever seen that before. I mean, it's just kind of weird." I said, "Where'd you find that?" And he said, "An auction site." I said, "Well, I don't know. I've got no idea where that bottle's been or what it is." But
Was it fake?
I don't know. I didn't really get much follow up from that. It's just sort of like let's pretend it is, and it's been filled with Bemore Legend or something, or it at best. It's like, how would you? I mean, you might just taste it as a, I don't know, as a cask, as a low proof. I don't know.
I think that explains what's happened to Highland Park for the last 4 years.
Oh.
Sorry, Bowmore. It happened to Bowmore in the early 2000s as well.
Yes.
Why do I feel like this is the last ever Friday night Q&A I'm ever doing?
That wasn't me. I want to be clear. That was not me.
No, but we even addressed the Bowmore problem when bloody what's his face was out many years ago now.
That was about 4 years ago, wasn't it? 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I love that you knew who what's his face was.
Yeah. You
McEwen. Jim McEwen.
Jump ship for
Founder Face Distillery. So he was no longer what's his face.
Anyway. Yeah, but sort of address it. Yeah, it was like Bemore was so inconsistent in the late 2000s, like for like many years. It was painful.
I would argue that distilleries have just as much inconsistency as Bemore out there. Of course.
Oh yeah.
There's so much focus on some of the superstars. It's like if a distillery like Macallan or Bemore or whatnot have inconsistent output at times, it's like it's kind of like it's just uproar. It's like it's not like it used to be. It's like
wasn't that the tasting? Wasn't that the tasting where they he told us about the story about when Suntory came to visit, they basically cut a check from everything, including the public toilets, just to absolutely upgrade the whole lot. Yeah. And they just stopped selling casks to everybody.
Yeah,
I remember that.
But it was it's for me, Bemore is when it comes through society, most of the time I'm buying a bottle. Don't need to taste it, I'll buy it.
I mean, you got all the notes there. You got all the notes. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting yourself in for there in many ways.
I love those bacony notes that come out of Bemores and things like that.
There is something to be said for the Bemore notes that we see in outturns and so on. Even like those UK notes are accurate. They're remarkably consistent with what you get in the whiskey. When we do get a Bemore, you look at it and go, yeah, you know what? It is what it says.
Yep.
Jeff Darby says, I've tasted new make off the still that's been better than some of the matured whiskey. I won't mention the distillery.
Wow, that's harsh.
That's quite scathing. Please don't mention that distillery.
Yeah. We like to do this sort of thing. We don't want to stop doing it.
Yeah. And then Zeno says there is good whiskey and there is great whiskey. Oh, he's quoting Andrew there. Okay, yes. And Andy Davis's comment, referring back to Blue Label earlier, he said it's had every ounce of flavour removed from it. That's why smooth whiskies are underneath to me. Yeah, I like whiskies that smack you in the face and say, "Hey, I'm here. Look at moi."
Blue Label's mellowed a bit over the years because, quite honestly, when Blue Label was intended, I remember going to a tasting very early in my whiskey journey. Dr. Jim Beveridge was out in Australia.
I still think it's hilarious that his name.
I know. Same.
Come on.
Dr. Jim
Of the Beveridge family, inventor of the beverage.
They make beverages.
Excuse me. My middle name is Beveridge. Thank you very much.
So you're a half brother of the Beveridge family.
Damn straight.
He said that it was in its earliest days. It was a chance to use a lot of those when it was conceived. They were using a lot of casks from closed distilleries and old stuff, that have been distilled and in the 60s and 70s. So when Blue Label was developed, it was a mix of rare and unusual stuff. That all ran out, obviously. So
the early bottlings that you get to taste, I think, are somewhat spectacular.
Yeah, they're different. At the very least, that's downplaying it immensely.
Yeah.
But finding what they are and knowing that bottling code and the serial number sequencing that they've got is damn impossible.
The numbers that I've got a bottle that was I bought the bottle in like 2001.
Shit.
So and it's still half full. Yeah, wow. And it's like it's still half full. It's still half full. And it's again, it's got a string of like letters and numbers at the bottom that make no sense. Like you can't track in. There's no year. You can't really decipher anything in it. But it's an amazing whiskey, and it's 43% as well.
Yeah.
Which is not really the 40s that we see today. But on Johnny Walker, I have to say there was a release a couple of years ago, well maybe actually 5 or 6 years ago now, called Odyssey, and it was in like this teardrop bottle, and it was a blended malt. It wasn't any grain in it. I thought it was unbelievably good, but it was also $1,800 a bottle. But and you go, well, I wouldn't spend that much usually on Johnny Walker, but I almost pulled the trigger on something like that because it was one of the most unbelievably rich and viscous blended I've ever had.
Wow.
I'll always be the first to say, even Johnny Walker Red is not a bad whiskey because it's a whiskey that serves a purpose. If you have that whiskey with soda water and a chunk of lemon, you may not like it straight up, but as that service, you will get smoke, you will get sweet, you will enjoy each layer of it. It's still a whiskey.
It is intended for exactly that. That's what they said openly, and they're not hiding that in any way.
Absolutely. So anyone that knocks Johnny Red or any of the Johnnies, I appreciate your opinion, but I don't agree with you because it serves a purpose.
Of those core range colours.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't care very much for the special edition blue labels that are...
There's a touch of marketing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The double black punches above its weight, I reckon.
Yeah,
double black,
they do.
green.
They're built to a purpose and they're very good.
They really are.
Green's always
It depends what you're after out of your whiskey. If you're wanting to spend a bit of time on it and pull it to bits, you're not going to get that with soda water. And I mean, that's kind of prosaic, but it goes back to what Andy was saying. Andy's coming from where, if it slaps you in the face, then it's going to last you half an hour and you're going to be able to pull that whiskey to bits over the course of half an hour, and you can't get that unless it's obviously cask strength. That's the beauty of the society stuff.
Yeah.
But very little of these, as Andy sort of says, mellow whiskies, they just don't really captivate you. They don't really pull you in. They don't draw you in. But saying that, on the Johnny Walker range as well, I hosted a few private tastings with the espresso roast, and that's a real cracking little drop, that one, for a quaffer.
Yeah.
And that was only in what, a 500 ml bottle, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
They all
really.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a bottle of that somewhere out the back there.
Yeah, it's a nice bottle, that one. It's a nice dram.
Yeah, I think.
You go ahead, Seamus. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, in my books, you measure a whiskey by its intentions and its ability to access those intentions. Like, if it's priced out of what it's trying to do, you can't really measure it by that. But other than that, price and intentions.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got a mate of mine, Nick. He works as a analyst over at Diageo, and he remember him saying to me once, this about two years ago. So he said the biggest problem with Red Label is just from a market level. It was its biggest enemy is Black Label. He said that there's just as a society becoming more sort of like wanting to drink better, even at that level, people who were looking at a Red Label for 38 were then looking at a black for 45 or something and going, well, I guess the extra $6 or $7 makes it worthwhile. And so it was Red Label's been actually in Australia, and I don't know about Australasia or anywhere else, but it has been steadily losing a bit of market share because of how well Black Label's been doing, which has been growing in market share. So they're trying to re-innovate with things like espresso roast as well, and younger demographic in that kind of area, which I find fascinating. That's the kind of stuff I find really interesting anyway.
But even that, I mean, you say to someone that a moderately peated whiskey is destroying or at least increasing a market share against the whiskey that has a tiny bit of peat. That doesn't make sense in traditional market understanding, because peat is a divisive subject. So that's a fantastic sign of our industry. They're growing up. They're learning a little bit. Smoke isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you think that might become more mainstream in time, as in like even more so? If we were to look at whiskey when pretty much all Speysiders had a much higher peating level, and do you think we're going to find that in future? Does anyone believe that, or?
No,
I'm talking maybe 100 years from now. I don't know, but
everything is peated.
Yeah, everything is peated, but I mean to the point where it's far more than they all drop their peating levels.
Except Glen.
Yeah. No, I think it's a bit of a fence sitter. You can't be a fence sitter on peat, I don't think, really.
Excuse me, Ben Romick and Ben Riek made their careers being fence sitters on peat. Literally not doing all their runs on peat. I mean, come on.
They hurt from straddling the fence.
I think there'll always be extremes in there. There'll always be extremes.
What I find fascinating about peated whiskey is how quickly some people can turn around on it, actually, which always blows me away. It's like, even just last night, I was hosting a private tasting for a group online, and there was one of the guests. Her name was Michelle. She couldn't stand peated whiskey. She said, like, it's just not her thing at all. And she poured she had the dram at 33.137, and poured it into the glass, and went, oh no, I can't drink that. I can't drink that. And at one point, I was talking about, adding a drop of water here and there to different whiskeys to open them up to let those floral aromas come out, et cetera, et cetera. And she added a few drops of water to it and brought it down from 59.9, which it sits at, to probably 50-ish or something, I don't know, and loved it. The peat didn't dissipate, but suddenly she said, oh, I actually really like that. It's kind of got those campfire notes now that I don't mind. And as soon as she associated the flavor with it being a time and place, like, oh, it reminds me of campfire. Oh, it reminds me of this kind of thing. It's like, oh, now I don't like it. Now I don't dislike it anymore. Actually, I'm actually coming around to that. So I don't think it's even as divisive as we say it is anymore, because we're coming to that point of saying, oh, we're learning how to adapt those flavors to things we know, experiences, flavors, and tastes, and things like that.
Well, I'll bring up the issue of peat. Side.
Get a bit closer to the camera, mate. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that guy's the
For
worst.
those listeners
You
out
need
there
You need to trim your nose here.
that I for the last couple of months. Now I've just checked online.
It's like a rap video. It just keeps going.
Some beats.
SMWS.com.au. Now
Okay.
there is still 15 bottles of 137.6
Great whiskey.
on the site. Now, this you are missing out on if you have not tried it. Absolutely. From a peated whiskey level that isn't looking for that sooty bogginess, but you want a nice, clean, crisp, drinkable whiskey. It's like that is still 15 on the site. Now, that's 2 months that's been sitting up there, has it, Matt? Is it about that?
No. 1 month. Sorry, 1 month and 1 day.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not that long. But yeah, it's a ripper whiskey.
Yeah, it's English whiskey, and it's bloody good. It really is. If it's hanging
So
around,
it's better than the official releases
Yep.
from that distillery.
Oh yeah, that's not hard.
Whisper that in my ear.
Can you remove your ear from your camera, please?
Yes, please. Yeah.
I feel like I have to go for a shower now.
The core releases I've had from this distillery, I've not been overly impressed with. But this, when I had it, Matt got me to taste it a while back. He's like, just taste it. And I did. And it's like, this is fantastic. Really, really good whiskey. And then when he said what it was from, and it's like, I just did a tasting last week using their core expression, and it did not go down very well with the audience at all because it was just so whatever. Mill. And this, and I mean, it shows what society is all about. It's finding things that
it's almost impossible to compare any casks to the core range, though.
No, totally, absolutely. And I don't know why it's hanging around. It shouldn't be. Really is good whiskey.
Well, the festival casks are pretty popular today. 275 casks or something.
It's hard to compete with festival casks.
Yeah, that's true. Did you grab any, Jason? Did you grab any festival releases at all, or?
None of the festival ones. I got the 53 malt of the month.
Yep.
I grabbed the gin.
Yep.
I grabbed the gin. Keep the missus happy and myself. No, I'll tick it myself because
that's why I'm a member, right? Yeah. It's a justification bottle. Don't worry, I get it.
Justification bottle.
I was actually kicking myself that I never got the last gin, so I had to jump on this one.
What was that, Cowie? Sorry, I missed that.
No, I was just going to say the gin is just purely insurance.
That's the. How many bottles have you got there? Oh, there's gin.
Yeah, there's gin. Yeah,
20,000.
What were you pouring there, Seamus? I saw a nice little green bottle.
That was a Flambe Away, one of my favorite 66s.
Flambe Away. That's a bloody beautiful bottle.
It's outrageously good. And my favorite thing about this bottle is last time I shared it with a group of people, there was one guy there that thought the name was funny enough that every time he poured himself a dram, which is about 8 times through the night, he said, "Flambe Away," and threw the bottle across the room.
Oh, what the?
Thank God these have such thick glass.
Oh, yeah. They are bloody thick. The glass on these is very, very thick. I've dropped a few before, and they just sort of bounced.
But
that is not an endorsement to test.
No, don't test it. Don't test it. Sorry, Steve, you got a 66.96 there. That's going back a bit.
Aged 8 years?
8 years, yep.
Younger.
And it goes really well with the stout that I'm drinking.
Oh, wow.
Oh, banging. Awesome.
You didn't tell anyone you were on to another beer. Come on.
Yeah,
no, it's still the same one. It's still the same one.
A bit hot.
Andy Davis says, correct, Anthony. I love my cask strength drams. Only one whiskey I can drink at 43%, and that is Kalila DE. Maybe I've damaged olfactories from drinking too much Heartwood. that can do it to you.
That could do it to you.
Yeah.
Minimum alcohol, 70%.
That's the lower limit. Yeah.
That's why it's minimum.
I don't think he matures. He just leaves it, doesn't he?
He abandons it.
Just abandon it in stainless steel to lose alcohol.
Dear, oh dear. Andrew Cuff starts by saying, I'd kill, and then I think he accidentally hit enter, which sounds a bit violent. And then he follows up by saying, for a cast-strength green label. Okay. I don't know what the hell that would go down. I can't think of any.
That is a, what is that?
I was trying to think of, there's not too many.
Beaver. Belching beaver.
There's a very famous beer from the Whiskey and Ailment team.
Lovely.
Peanut butter milk stout.
Yep.
Ooh.
Outrageously good with a whiskey.
Ooh.
Outrageously good with a peated whiskey, no doubt.
Well said. And Flambe Away just qualifies.
Just qualifies. Yeah, it's not an in your face peat, that Flambe Away. But what I love about that particular cask was that it's falls 18 months or 2 years before they got rid of coal-fired stills.
No, that is 100% why I picked it up. I mean,
Yeah.
Tronic and Ardmore have such a history with their coal-fired stills.
Yeah.
It's so fun to try before and afters.
And I love the still house at Ardmore. They've still got the doors, the coal doors to underneath the stills sitting there. It's like
still my favorite tasting in the world to do with people is take a 2003 Glendronach 12-year-old and a 2005 Glendronach 12-year-old and just compare them.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that it's a coal fire still to a fresh still. And the flavors are so different, but like fantastic in either direction, but it's so different.
It was on brand as always.
No, it's all good. It's all good. No, it's kind of like I just love that whole. It's almost the devil in the detail is from the inconsistencies.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
which is what makes it fantastic. It's almost the error of what was happening rather than the rule.
Yeah, I mean it's the perfect example of being confined by your palate and making it work in a fantastic way.
And I guess that's why so many people still sort of there's so much, I guess, rose tinted glasses over what that era of whiskey in many ways. It's like what was being distilled in the 80s and 90s, or more specifically, what was being distilled in the 70s and 80s for a lot of distilleries, of course.
Oh, I mean, even in the 90s, there's this brilliant era where the whole industry was being constricted upon, and it was the distillers versus the companies.
Yeah.
And it resulted in these like insane, shouldn't be existing whiskeys. Every time a distillery got told to reduce their production quantities, they increased their ferment times.
Yeah.
And it just created these insane whiskeys that had this enormous viscosity when they never did before.
Well, which is interesting because you do see it in some of the articles and the Malt Whiskey Companion that Michael Jackson wrote. I've got his first, second, third, and fourth editions, which were all done before he died. The fifth edition was in production or was in development and editing when he passed away. And subsequent editions are all other editors with his name attached, except for the Macallan section, which until the very recent edition, which is 7th edition, I think, they finally updated it because they kind of had to. He talks on and on about a lot of the coal firing of the stills and going on about the viscosity of spirit. It's really interesting as that time capsule of his documentation of what the distillery processes were doing in the first edition of the Malt Whiskey Companions, 92, 93, I think 93. So it's a look at early 90s production techniques.
Yeah. A question relating to this conversation is Caleb asks, what other distilleries are still using coal-fired stills? Off the top of my head, I don't think any are in Scotland.
I think they're actually banned from doing so under workplace health and safety.
Environmental legislation as well.
Environmental, yeah. It's a twofold punch. They can't do coal-fired because of the emissions under environmental and because of the workplace health and safety regs.
When did Springbank turn theirs off?
Well, it's got to be fairly recent. They were the last.
Yeah, they were the Dronic was the second last and Springbank was the last, but I don't know when Springbank's was.
Springbank, Dronic, Ardmore, and I think it was Turret before that. But it was
Farkless. Oh no, they're gas, aren't they?
They're gas. Yeah.
Man, I love that the main wash still at Glenfarclas. What a beast!
I love all the stories about, even though it's so beautiful and so classic that they still use that gas, is it destroys the still.
Yeah.
They have so much maintenance.
Yeah.
It must destroy their production capacity.
Well, I years ago I was on a distillery tour with Derbidge and with Tony Chapman, and I was at Glenfarclas, and I sat next to the distillery manager Callum, and he said, "Yeah, it's hard work with the still there. There's a lot of maintenance."
Oh yeah, I mean, we hear it every time we go to Scotland. As BF, it's like, Ben Rick and Farclas obviously have quite a good relationship, so there's so many stories shared, and it's just Farclas are working hard to maintain that thing, but you know what, it pays off in the spirit.
Yeah.
When I was there, the main wash still number 1 was burnished red in color. It was totally like dark red, the copper, and it was, I think I was there a week before they were taking it out for to restore it again, and it's I said it's quite common for it to look this color, and it gets this way about every 6 to 7 months, and just nightmarish. But they changed it at one point. I mean, it was like, what was it, 06 or 05 or something? They changed that, and they went back immediately because it changed the spirit quality too. It couldn't have been much earlier than 05. I think it was like 05 or 04.
Andrew will know, but they certainly did change it, and it didn't last more than a year.
A question from Dave Maxwell. Oh, it's less than a year. Less than a year. Far less than a year. Yeah. Any blood knocks on the horizon for SMWS? Dave, we've had a string of 50 dot things. And they've all been in that sort of 25 to 29 to 32-year-old range of casks. Mostly older stock, of course. It's all sort of pre-David Pryor era and all sort of that lovely syrupy era of older casks. So, Dave, I don't know off the top of my head. That's a question for Andrew as Cellarmaster. I'm sure he's got some. I'm sure there's some things on the horizon. And honestly, I'm looking forward to some younger stock coming through as single casks from them, if that's a thing, because you know what? I'd love to see what the new era tastes like in a single cask, rather than in a shiny gold decanter.
True.
No, I'm sure if you like those things, I'm sure. So Caleb, I hope that answers your question. Dave, I hope that answers your question. And Kevin says he's just waiting for the next Macallan. Mate, you don't have to wait too long. They've just kind of landed. And
can I segue then, Matt? Read it and weep, people. Read it and weep.
All right, come on.
24.95. Distilled May 1990. Bottled October 06.
Oh, Matt's getting his bottles out.
They're all empty.
These are all empties. These are all empties. These are all some of the ones that went. These are all the festival bottlings that went into the packs. Just the empties that I'm sitting on my desk still.
Did anyone pick up any festival bottlings that they usually wouldn't be interested in the distillery?
Yeah, I picked up a 10. Not a code I usually gravitate towards, but I tried a sample from Whiskey and Element yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. So I ended up grabbing one. So
Society 10s are always amazing.
I have to admit, I am usually the distillery that is 10 is one that I love their whiskey, but I don't just assume it's fantastic whiskey because it's come from that distillery, but Society 10s in general have been something that has just absolutely drawn me. And I picked up the Moyne, and I'm very excited because
awesome.
Yeah, because the thing that really interests me about that distillery is their peated asphalt bitumen burning spirit.
Yeah, that Moyne has the most amazing nose on it. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah,
I am excited.
I'm grabbing a refill, guys. Hang on.
Yep.
I won't be able to compete with Buzz's bottle there, so I'm going to sign off, fellas.
Thanks for dropping in, Jason. We're not going to go too much longer anyway, but thanks for dropping.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you all.
Good to see you too, Jason.
We'll grab on again shortly.
Have a great weekend, mate.
Cheers, you too.
Yeah, very cool. Question from Sam Liccardi. Good to see you, Sam. He asks, Whiskey Man Sam asks, any more gin in the future? Yes, and yes. There's actually 2 or 3 more in the immediate future. You might even spot the next one as early as June Outturn, but I'm not sure yet. We haven't done June Outturn yet. Yes, there's more gins in the future. And there's one which is actually even a little bit longer in oak. And there's one that's a little bit shorter as well, but they're all cask strength gins. So there's a few more coming. And of course, we're working with a few distilleries there as well. Caleb says he picked up the 10.190 and the 7.233 and the tasting pack. Man, you did pretty well. The 10.190 is just such a banger that morning. And the 7.233, there it is. There it is, Mark. Yeah, awesome. And 7.233 was one of my personal favorites. The syrupy sweet tale of romance. The 13-year-old first fill Oloroso
flew out the door from what I saw.
How did I miss that?
That was ridiculous.
There'll always be another good bottle. There'll always be
100%.
Exactly.
But I feel like sevens don't come along frequently enough.
That's true. Yeah, I do love the sevens. They're always got that really oily sort of like character that I love in the spirit.
Oh, and it's a brother to my distillery. I mean, it's the same
It is.
water
Yes,
source.
it is. Yeah, yeah.
It
There's
is, yeah.
shared history between them.
But sevens at cask strength rock.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you could hit the 7 distillery with a rock from 12.
Yeah, you can actually, can't you?
I speak that literally. You could.
Yeah,
I do like that. Yes,
I remember nothing better than it's a brand
Throwing
ambassador who
rocks.
shall not be named ripping up the turf in front of 7 to try and get to the reservoir between the two.
that's called destruction of property.
That's why he shall not be named.
Fair call.
Fair call. John Yanowski joined. Good to see you, John.
John, we just talked about Blatnock too.
Yeah, we did just talk about Bladnock. Well, we touched on it very briefly. Yeah, it's kind of like 2 eras for that distillery, isn't it? It's like old era, new era, but I think it's very exciting. Caleb says I grabbed the 7.224, which was came out a couple of months ago. From last month, sorry. He said projectionists and perfectionists. Yes, that was a 14-year-old first fill bourbon barrel. That was a lovely whiskey. I featured that for the first time actually in it was a preview bottling in December for Blue Mountains Whiskey Club. There you go.
Wow.
There you go. So big shout out to those guys. Good team up there.
You were saying there's some raunchy cognacs coming through as well in the
yeah. Well, they're a little while off. They're only on bottling hall at the moment, but it is raunchy. Yeah, there's some new. We've collaborated with 4 new cognac distilleries, which is really
awesome.
So yeah, so that'll be C6, C7, C8, and C9.
Exciting.
And does that mean we're getting some .1 cognacs?
They're all .1. Yeah. So we're getting an allocation of each .1 to begin with. I think one of them, C7 or one of the others there's 2 or 3 casks already in production, but I know that there's the .1s for each of those are in bottling hall as we speak, which is so that, I mean, don't expect them any time between now and August, September at the very earliest, but really it'll be sort of down the path a bit for this year. It's exciting.
Is the Australian market strong on cognac sort of releases at the moment? Like,
No.
it's building? No?
No, it's not a very big cognac market in Australia. I mean, we'll get a modest supply of each. I hope that that we can do some great member nights with them and do things like that and feature them around. They're very varied. Very, very varied, each 4 of them.
I tell you what, though, Matt, that dinner we did last year was fantastic.
Oh, the French cognac. Yeah, the cognac dinner. That was unbelievable. That was
genuinely
what's the name of that? What's the name of that restaurant?
It always escapes me.
It's I know exactly where it is, but I just can't remember the name of it. Andy will know it, and Chapo would know it as well. But it's
one up the coast. It's up the coast. Is that the one you're talking about?
Closer to North Shore. So Pimple Way. Yeah.
Brasserie L'Entrecote.
That's right. Sorry. Yes, Brasserie L'Entrecote. Yes.
Perfect pronunciation as well, Muzz.
I got time. I can learn a bit of French.
You don't need to.
You don't need to. Andy says, "Hey Samuel, would just say g'day to Bill for me. Go back to his days in Epping before he moved to Tassie." There you go. Bill McHenry's days in Epping. That's probably gonna go back a bit. Sam says, "Hey mate, absolutely do it for you." So that's a private conversation. Take that elsewhere. Sevens always Rippery says, "Fantastic." I think we might call it there, guys.
All right.
Really appreciate everyone coming in for some Friday night drinks and having a chat. This has been really great. I'm as we've seen from the comments and the viewers, that everyone's appreciating it over at Society. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too, bud.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for that bottle opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Matt are coming around.
What's going on here? 1.141.
Wow.
That's a code that goes back a little bit.
Oh.
Give us the stats on that one, Joey. What have we got?
48.1.
We could keep this going forever if we keep just drinking
40.
whiskey.
Pulling out those Society bottles.
41 years old.
On brand.
What?
Refill Hoggy.
Was that 41? Sorry, come again.
41 years old. Yeah, that was the
41
second
years old.
oldest that we. That was before the 48-year-old.
Enigma. Yes.
Yeah.
Truly the Matt Bailey of whiskies.
41 years old.
Yeah.
You must have paid like $250 back then for that.
It hurts.
I paid $650 at auction.
You know what hurts, Seamus, is just you can already feel the pain I'm going to inflict, can't you? You can already feel it. You can feel it from here.
He Darth Vader'd me.
I will. Caleb says, I don't see how that's a problem, Seamus.
Look, I'm ending my night on some new make then. That's how I want to go out on this.
Do you mean starting your night then?
Well, it's starting the bit that is more fun.
Hello.
All right. Well, so where's this new make sourced from?
This is G. Glenglasser.
Okay.
Unpeated new make. This is fresh off the still, so it's 66.3.
Lovely.
Ooh.
Nice.
It's fantastic. Honestly, this and the peated new make I have behind me as well are just completely what turned me to thinking GG was the best distillery in Scotland. This is some of the best new make I've ever had.
I still love assessing obviously new make samples, and it's just kind of like I love tasting great new make, and that moment where you taste it, you're like, that's an incredible spirit. You can learn so much off new make as well. It's for me that two of the most outstanding new make examples I've ever tried were actually, well, it was an experience, but I tasted 7 different make samples from Loch Lomond in one hit. And they were all watered down to like 15% ABV or something. They were all sort of watered down with a stab of water in each from the medical sort of setup in the lab, and they were unbelievable. And thanks to Franz Schurer, the Ardbeg new make that I got to taste was
wow,
unbelievable.
How recent was that Loch Lomond stuff?
What's that, mate?
How recent was the Loch Lomond?
That was just last year. The new make samples from last year. Yeah.
My God, what the hell were they doing to their product for so long in their regular releases?
It was the same. It was the same thing as a lot of distilleries. I mean, with regular releases, they were relatively new to the single malt game. The quality didn't need to be there.
I know a couple of years ago when they changed hands, things changed in the business in itself and the way things were being made. But
have you seen the number of recharred hogshead cask types coming through? It's more and more because it's sort of rejuvenation of cask. It's sort of like realizing they need to have a stable single malt output now, rather than just, we're just going to sell it to blenders. It's all refill, and it's they've had to change that up a bit. And I think Loch Lomond sort of have worked that out and actually worked it out quicker than most.
No, well, that's one of those distilleries that scarred me for a long time, and I'm very untrustworthy.
Did you have one of those terrible ones with the swirlage kind of the boxes that used to come with the silly sort of
rubber ones?
I've had them when the corks were green, moldy. Like the product was rotten, and I took them back. It was just like crap, and I complained to the distillery about it as well. I've got emails from the distillery asking for more information about it. This was a long time ago, but I'll tell you what, that scarred me big time for that brand.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's what happens if something goes really, really wrong. But you got to question why the hell it ever made it to market, and it happens sometimes. It happens.
Yeah.
100%. But I think they're one of the distilleries that has definitely ticked the box for me of being they're moving in the right direction. I really like a lot of their later releases and their philosophy to making whiskey lately.
There's a few that have really.
But it is it's a name in Scottish culture that can really market itself. What Loch Lomond actually means. I mean, it's featured so heavily in prose and poems and songs throughout the decades.
Dude, it was in Tintin comics.
Totally. So it's not like Ben Nevis, like you don't have to.
There's quite the cultural
that hard.
mythicism about it.
Totally. And it's just a name that you can ride off the back of. Strap a saddle on the back of Loch Lomond and go for it.
Well, I think the award tonight for biggest flex has to go to you. Sorry, Cowie. I mean,
you win.
You tried really hard there, Murray, but I'm sorry. But Cowie wins the Flex Award with that a 41-year-old.
Well, I didn't.
One and
I
just felt really guilty because I came on board with an OB Klein leash, and then that
wasn't an OB Klein leash. That was a Rare Malts Klein leash.
It was a Rare Malts Klein leash.
Sorry, Rare Malts. Yeah,
it was like, I'm just going to kill this.
I came on board with a society whiskey, and everybody else is driven society stuff. It's the first time I've done this, and I thought, oh shit. And there's a couple of rumble casts in there.
Want to be clear, I didn't swear. Anthony squared. So.
Oh, come on, I'm Scottish. It's part of the vocabulary. We can't help it. So I just thought I'd unzip it at the end of the night. Can I finish off with a really good Johnny Walker story?
Oh, yeah. Please do.
Okay. So this is actually a combination of two of my passions.
I'm listening.
This is about 10 years ago. I do a lot of technical diving, and about 10 years ago, a friend of mine phoned me and said, I've got the GPS coordinates for a wreck, and it's sitting at 62 meters of water. And at the time, there was probably a team of about 5 of us that were diving regularly every single weekend. And he said, we should go and see what's down there. And apparently on the inventory, he said it had 1,000 cases of jam, 2,500 cases of, 1,000 explosives, and 2,500 cases of Johnny Walker whiskey. And I thought to myself, I said, no, you're coming in now. You're just trying to get somebody to get into the water. It's not a depth that a lot of people kind of go to. So we ended up going out on the boat, and there was 3 of us diving it this day, and we went out. It's out from Barrenjoey Lighthouse, about 5-6 kilometers, and we dropped the anchor, and it picked into something. So my mate Matt, he was first in the water, and he descends on the anchor line. I'm second in the water, and as I get down to about 12 meters, he's coming back up the line, and he turns and says that basically that what we had picked had popped out of whatever it was, the wreck. So we'll get back on the boat. So we got back on the boat. We picked it up on the GPS again. We dropped it as a short line, and it picked into something again. We presumed it was the wreck. So I was first in the water, and I dropped down, and I was down, got onto the sand, and the anchor had picked out of it again. So it was trailing on the sand. So I took my reel off and tied it onto the end of the anchor and started swimming out in the direction that it was coming from. And I just didn't at any stage think that this was, I thought this was all kind of a bit of bullshit to try and get me down and see if there was anything there. So as we were swimming, and by that point, my buddy had caught up with me, and I turned and I said, I can't see anything. Let's go back to the boat. And as we were turning around, and bear in mind, you've got kind of 4 or 5 different tanks on you, different gas, you can't turn very quickly. So I was turning, and about 20 meters away, I saw this propeller sticking up out of the sand. 98% of the wreck was under the water, but we saw it. So we swam up to the wreck, and as we were coming over the top, I was sitting about maybe 3 meters from the sand, and all we could see was these square bottle ends coming up out of the sand. And to the point where the bottling plant was Kilmarnock, and it was 1896, I think it was a Kilmarnock bottling plant, which is the previous bottling plant.
Yeah.
so we started obviously trying to find souvenirs, and in the souvenirs, it was trying to find not a full bottle, obviously, because the aluminium corks, aluminium stoppers at that time would have eroded, or but it was all empty. But anyway, there was only 2 or 3 intact bottles. We had smashed a couple of them because they were absolutely so brittle, obviously. So over the next 6 months, we had started trying to work out where the wreck site was, and you could waft back the sand, and there was just the timber would appear on the deck. It was just beautiful. But there was a couple of hatches that we had found, because the whole thing was trying to find out where if there was cargo in there. But I've not been back down there for about 8 or 9 years, but the sand, the bed of sand was just littered with the Johnny Walker bottle, and it was just an absolute, what an experience.
Yeah, wow.
Beautiful bottles. Beautiful.
Oh,
Just
wow.
all over the shop. All over the shop.
You just reminded me, there's 2 casks of whiskey sitting in a warehouse in Melbourne that we imported from our warehouse in Glasgow. And we imported them wet, but not full of whiskey anymore. So the whiskies themselves from that cask have been bottled and society single casks, but those casks have been brought over. And they're 2 giant hoggies. And one of them, I won't say which distilleries they are just yet, but it's a project that we're working on with Whiskey and Ailment. And one of them has a barrel head on it that has the barrel head looks like it's ancient. The cask looks like a refill, but the actual barrel head, there's a little like iron plaque on the barrel head that says John Walker and Sons Kilmarnock on the head. And so it's like, I don't know how old that barrel head is, but that's very cool that it's had refill enough that we can see that the head itself still has the Kilmarnock and iron stamp.
We're talking something from the 50s or 60s, Matt.
Yeah. We're talking about a whiskey that's what, 3rd or 4th refill then?
Yeah.
Of a whiskey that's on, at least that head has been.
Yeah.
The cask is much newer, but the head itself is quite old. So it's like
the head itself. We're talking because they stopped doing iron imprints and
like proper nail, like iron,
and nailing iron plaques to heads. They stopped doing in the late 60s.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right. And so I love seeing things like that. And you just reminded me, Cowie, that
is that something that is that a kind of a 3 to 5 year project, Matt, or is that something we're going to see?
It's closer.
I know you can't say too much.
No, it's closer to a sort of a 6 to 9 month project, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
No one else is listening. Tell us.
No one's listening.
Everyone's gone. It's just us.
Everyone's gone. So
Everyone getting close. He'll tell us. Getting close.
I don't want to see your damn nose hair or ear hair, buddy.
I'm so glad you beat me to that, Muzzer.
But it's a project we're working on, and there's 4 collaborators in it, and getting those casks over was no small feat.
If you had to name a distillery collaborator, who would it be?
Nice try.
Yeah, worth a shot.
Carayo.
Yeah. Steve, you came in right where I needed you. Thank you. Yeah, all good. Thank you, everyone, again. And awesome. Thanks, Cowie, for that. Amazing. That's
a hell of an anecdote, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. And let's do this again next Friday. See you Friday. Friday drinks. Fun.
What's up?
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. I'll see you soon.
See you guys.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.